everyone. We want to welcome you today to the We Are Flora Pearl podcast. I am your host, Latasha J. Humphrey, founder of the Flora Pearl Foundation, Incorporated. I am super pumped about this podcast today. But before we get started, we want to let our audience know that this podcast is being brought to you by the Flora Pearl Foundation, where our vision is bridging the gap, building a legacy. Our mission is that we are a 501c3, community-focused nonprofit mentoring organization, building healthy relationships and partnerships between women and girls through education, community service, networking, unification, and career planning. Our inspiration is Flora Pearl Humphrey. She was my paternal grandmother, and what she taught me and my family was about faith, family, and community. And that is where I draw my inspiration from. Now, audience, I have the pleasure of introducing to you one of the hardest working women I know. She is an expert in HR, branding, you name it. She has a story that is a true testament of persevering and overcoming obstacles. She has been featured as one of our Flora Pearl Foundation's Phenomenal Faces of Greatness. So without further ado, I present to you Tamika Holmes. Hi, Tamika. How are you today?
I'm amazing today. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. It is such an honor to have you with us today. And I do want to say, just as we're into this new year, just happy new year to you. So 2018 is going to be great.
Yes, ma'am, it is. We're kicking it off with a bang.
Yeah. And if you would, just go ahead and briefly introduce yourself to our audience.
Well, I'm Tamika Holmes. I am a native of Birmingham, Alabama, and I describe myself in a couple of different bullets. Outside of being a native of Birmingham, I always like to tell my story a little like this. I am a high school dropout. I'm a college graduate. I'm a mother of two, married 22 years. And I love to see people reach their potential. My gifting is teaching, but my passion and my purpose is people.
All right. Well, that sounds wonderful. And thank you for introducing yourself. And so we're going to go ahead and jump into the podcast. And I know you're truly big as it relates to entrepreneurship. And so we know that being one is not easy. And I know that, it's kind of now it's become where people, they want to do it so quickly and really just really say, I want to jump into that. And it is for some people, and some people it necessarily isn't. But I wanted you to, share 3 things that have helped you to persevere when facing challenging times and when everything and possibly everyone around you said that you needed to give up.
I would say my top thing would be my tears. And I say that with such passion because, without that release, you would listen to those voices that tell you to give up. I always give myself what I like to call meltdown moments. Whenever I in the past had a challenge in business or couldn't get through it, I developed 5-minute mini meltdowns. I give myself 5 minutes to have my fit, if I need to yell, scream, have my little tantrum or whatever, but I only take 5 minutes because that gives me a moment to release. And then I get on the other side of that 5 minutes and then I go into my prayer. It's just a natural human response that we deal with. And, you have to push through that. Number 2 is remembering the vision that God gave me. That's probably the most important thing to me because, sometimes business is a little slow. Sometimes, you're on top. But understanding the vision that God gave you and how to interact that vision is one of the most important things that you have to remember as an entrepreneur. And number 3, I remember that I've always been an entrepreneur. I don't know any other way to be. In fact, my first business was at the age of 6. And so I go back to that 6-year-old little girl who wanted to help dust tables for $1. And that makes me smile and persevere through.
Wow. I really love that that the first one when you talked about the moment, to even give yourself that time, because you're so true with saying, you're human. And I think like sometimes we're wanting to just get past it and not really deal with it. So that is so amazing,
Yeah,
to have that, and like you even incorporate that to say this is what is necessary, and at this time, like if I need to do it, let me go ahead and do it you know
absolutely, absolutely.
yeah, so that's perfect. Well, awesome. Well, I wanted to ask you, if you would even share about the businesses that you have right now.
In fact, it's so amazing that we're talking about this. Last year, I came to a conclusion to redirect my energy. I started a partnership about midways of the year, and that's just that wasn't the direction that God wanted me to go in, and so I had to come to the conclusion that reasons, seasons, and times had intervened. And so one of my businesses, I'm no longer a partner in, but my two main ones, TDH Operations LLC, is a business and um, career education firm, and we use education to help aspiring business owners understand the ups, the downs, the ins, the outs, and the correct way to not only develop their entrepreneurship, but to develop and make sure that their business is operating like it should. And then on the career side, we help career transitioners, and we're all going through a transition, no matter what level we're at. We help transitioners develop their job mindset into a career mindset. And there's a big difference, helping them understand being a student of their skill, being a student of their knowledge, being a student of their ability, that helps make them a value to the career world. And on the nonprofit side, we have Community Care Development Network, and for short, we call it CCDN, where we believe in the holistic approach and the unity of family. It takes more than just someone talking to the kids, but you have to engage with the parents as well. And so our mission is to make sure that we're developing a holistic approach through mentoring not only the children but the family as a whole, and helping them go through challenges and adversities that we've all experienced in life.
Right, right. No, that's wonderful. And as we're on the topic, dealing with mentoring, how important do you believe it is?
I believe that mentoring is just as important as breathing. I can remember the first time I was in a position where I needed someone to talk to. And, as a child, you feel alone and you're looking for something. And it was age 11 for me. For some, it could be age 15, 16, but age 11 is my synonymous number where I started going through challenges and changes in my life. And I needed that mentor, or I needed that person that to help direct me in a great direction. My mom and my dad were working through some personal challenges, as adults do, and sometimes going through personal challenges individually and collectively, that brings about hardship on the family as well. And so mentorship for me, is a foundational tool to help families understand their purpose, their vision, and how to thrive together.
Okay. And I know, we tend to look at our young people definitely as it relates to mentors. And when we hear that word a lot, I know in the past years and just period, and it has been towards younger people. But as I have matured, I've learned that mentoring it basically is for all ages. And I wanted to get your take on that and ask you, have you had, just how many even mentors have you had along your path?
Oh, wow. I've had mentors for every level, I like to say, of my life. A lot of people don't really think about pastors as a form of mentorship, but actually they are. They teach you the Word of God. They give you credence to the direction and life that you're supposed to live through the Word of God. But if you really think about it, pastors are teachers, mentors are teachers. And so there's mentorship all throughout life. And so for me personally, I've had maybe about 6 to 7 mentors in my adult life, some at different levels of my life, because remember I said reasons, seasons, and times. And so every time I elevate to a new level, God sends me that one person that kind of what I like to say is all mine. They may be mentoring other people, but he sends me that person to help guide me through the level of challenges that I'm about to walk into as I grow in my faith, as I grow in my business, as I grow as a woman, and as I grow as a mother. So thinking about all of that, he sends me that one person to help me go through the challenges that life is going to try to throw at me.
Right, right. And I wanted to ask you, what do you believe has been the key to your success thus far?
The key to my success, I've got a couple of keys. Number one, not being afraid to take risk. Um, my husband gave me, if y'all remember the comic books, X-Men. There,
Yes.
if I'm calling the right one, he's gonna get me if I call the wrong one. But there's a
Uh-oh.
character in there called Juggernaut,
Okay.
and if you know what a juggernaut is a individual or entity that goes full steam ahead. God will drop something in my spirit, and boom, I'm out. And so that's his little nickname for me. And so that's one of my keys, not resting or waiting on a vision that God has given me. Now if he tells me to wait, I follow suit and I follow instructions on that end. But if he tells me move, I'm very obedient, which leads me to key number 2, being obedient to operate to the capacity in which he has instilled in me. I always grew up, unsure of who I was and how to do things. But I had to remember he put a gift in me that's unique to Tamika, just like he put a gift in Latasha that's unique to Latasha. And we're connected in some form. So no one has to be in competition with one another.
Yeah.
And then that leads me to my number 3, being mature enough to operate in who you are without, anybody else, anybody else's voice pitching in. You have those that God has for you. You have those that are supposed to, kind of guide you. And those are the people that God sends you. But you also have some naysayers. You also have what the young people like to call the haters in your life. And some people say their haters fuel them. I like to say, I don't know if I give that much thought unto a part. I don't give that much thought into that right there. Now I pray for my haters, and I even help them.
Right.
I even help them. I even help them. High five them. What you need.
Right. No,
But,
I love that though. Just real quick, when you just said that, because that's how I began to look at it. Like I was speaking with someone, and that's what they said. Oh, they help motivate me. They help fuel me, and I agree with you, Tamika, because I said, why give that much attention? Why don't you appreciate who's here?
Absolutely.
Why don't you appreciate who is cheering you on? Appreciate where you're going. Keep your eyes on the prize, and not looking at who. I'm not saying that with them being there, whatever they say, I just say don't do it to prove them wrong. Like, don't do it to try to prove that I can do it for you. Why don't you prove it because that's what you're supposed to be doing? You know what I mean?
It's a form of competition.
Yeah.
Of unwarranted, unneeded competition.
That's good.
Now you'll tell yourself, well, that gives me fuel or whatever, but you're actually in competition with those who want to see you fail.
Yeah.
So that puts you in unneeded, unwarranted pressure instead of just operating at the level that you're supposed to be operating as, doing what you're supposed to be doing. And when you put yourself in a position to where you're allowing those who want to see your downfall to fuel you, what you're doing is you're taking your eyes off of the focus and off of the vision that God has given you, because you're so focused on proving your point.
Yeah. That's really good. I love that. I love your 3 keys, period. Because from what I heard, you said to move. Move when you see that you need to, and then you said being obedient. To the voice of God and to what your purpose is, and then also being mature about it. And I really love that, because just in coming into knowing more that that we are connected, like you said. And so it's kind of whatever energy you're willing to take, from that, or even put into something, and why not do it for the good? Like, why not? I mean, they may be there, but it's almost like they're on the sidelines, because if you're in the game playing and you're in your lane, it doesn't really matter. I need to be aware, because that's even driving. I mean, they teach you that, I think, in defense driving, where you do need, so you are aware of what's going on around you. However, what my thing is in driving, it is to really keep, to make sure it's not as hard. Like, if there's a situation about to come up, like an accident, they'll tell you to try to not hit like as hard. Like, you can try to brace yourself, I guess.
Yes.
To not make it as bad, but it really is I need to be aware, but I need to still stay in my lane. And so I love that. I really feel that is blessed. That blessed me. So I know somebody listening will be blessed with that, because it really is about maturity, and that's so much dealing with emotions and mental health,
Yes, I'm currently reading this book called The Big Leap, and it's by Gay Hendricks.
Okay.
And it's conquering your hidden fear and take life to the next level. And I mean, I literally just cracked it open today.
Wow.
And God has me on a path where he's showing me bigger and better, not for my good, not for me. I reap the byproduct from it. A lot of people say, well, I want to go into business because I want to be rich. Well, if that's your sole purpose for going into business, I don't think you need to go into business. I went into business because God gave me a vision.
Yes.
And I reaped rewards. In fact, my first year of business, I didn't earn a dime.
Okay.
And so as he's taking me on this journey, I'm so excited. We just signed a lease on a new building
Congratulations.
For CCDN, and we're getting everything ready for it. But he has me reading this book, and in just the introduction and the first chapter, he has shown me so much about, just naturally being happy. And so and not someone else making you happy. And there's one phrase that I highlighted. He shows us how to turn dust into diamonds.
I love it.
And that is so amazing to me, focusing on the keys and the points of life that, you're supposed to be focused on. No one else is in control of your happiness but you. And so, I took some big risks. Starting last year, I left my job to go into business full time.
That's awesome.
I, was blessed with a great contract that I've been working since last year. He has always provided for me. And some people say, really, you left your job? Well, I said I'm about taking risks.
Okay,
so
right.
the money that we, now I tell people, if you don't have God's blessing to do this, don't do it. So
Okay.
that's my
Right. That's your
that's
disclaimer. Like
that's the disclaimer.
right.
But God gave me His blessing. In fact, He had talked to my husband and talked to my children even before He said, "Okay, go do it." The job that I was at was going through major transition, and for me, I was one of the ones that was hoping, okay, I'm gonna get laid off so I can get my severance pay and this, then the other. This is how you know to trust God. Not only was I given a better position at the company, I was given a $10,000 raise,
Wow.
an extra week's vacation, starting at the beginning of the year. And so I accepted the position because, I convinced my flesh had convinced itself, okay, I can sit here the next 20, 30 years, retire, then go full time in my business.
Yeah.
And so I'd already been there 9 years. And so right after I accepted the position, a week later, I was talking to my boys and my family, my husband, and so just telling them what I thought. And so all three of them looked at me and said, "Oh, we heard that last year. We was waiting on you."
Oh, what? Wait.
Yes. They heard it in September of the previous year.
Wow,
I agonized over the decision because I was worried about what was going to happen to my household.
Yeah.
Because I came from a household where, stability wasn't always there. And so I thrive on being stable, comfortable. I'm a steak and potato type of girl, I like my steak and potato, And so when God told me, go turn in your 2 weeks notice, I said, okay. I accepted the job on January 31st. I went and talked to my boss I had to talk to both bosses because I had to talk to my previous boss and the new boss. And so when I talked to them, both of them started crying. And when I told them that God told me to do this, the tears immediately dried up and they said, you better go be obedient.
It's good.
And so I left that job. Now, mind you, it cut $40,000 out of my household. So my husband was the sole breadwinner, taking care of everything. And I tell people, we had to eat some meatloaf for a couple of months. We couldn't eat steak. We had to eat some meatloaf. We had to do what we had to do. And so come a couple of months later, because even that first month was real uncomfortable. I was like, I ain't used to this. I was trying to go look for me a job. I didn't care if it was McDonald's. I didn't care if it was Burger King. I was going to find something. And so I remember I was on the computer looking at it. My husband's a very quiet and humble man. He saw what I was doing. So at the end of the month, I think we had fallen short on some bills, and he had looked at me. He didn't complain or anything. The only thing he said to me, he said, what did God tell you?
Wow.
And I said, okay. So a month later, I ended up with this contract. And so I've been working with this contract, and I've had some opportunities for other contracts. And so I always tell people, meatloaf don't taste so bad. I just had to endure, and I had to believe in the vision that God has given me. And so the glory that he gets out of this is we've never missed a meal. We've never had a utility turned off. And I'm going to tell you, when you're obedient, he replenishes everything that you think you've lost. So my husband, who was obedient and faithful to God, as I was obedient and faithful to God, that $40,000 that we were missing out of our household, he has recouped on his own.
Wow. That's deep.
He's been elevated on his job enough to where our household is not only back where we were when I left, but it's beyond that.
It's good.
And so all I'm doing is saying, okay, God, you've shown me what you needed, what I've needed to see. And now I'm grooming this gift that you have me doing, and I'm operating in it. And so, was it fearful? Absolutely it was. This next phase for 2018, he told me to sign this lease on this building. I'm like, okay, Lord.
Right.
All right, this is going to be interesting. So I'm excited about what he's doing in this season.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And I hear you. I know you, as it talks about, well, as you're talking about family, I mean, one of the key areas definitely, as it relates to my grandmother and what she taught us, it is family. And I wanted you to share even more because I hear it in your voice already, but how important is family to you?
Family is everything to me. I didn't grow up in a united family type household, and neither did my husband. And so when we got together, I always tell people, um, my marriage, I know for a fact, is ordained by God, because at age 11, due to the way that I grew up, I remember making my disclaimer before my daddy and God himself, with my hand on my hip and my head cocked to the side. I remember declaring that I was never getting married and that I was never having children. Now, 11-year-old Tamika spoke that out of fear, because I was afraid that I was going to mess my kids up or mess up my family. Because, growing up in the household that I grew up in, I had no concept of what family really was. And it's amazing how God works, is because he started operating on my behalf as soon as I said those words out of my mouth.
Mm,
My husband actually saw me at age 13,
mm.
and I did not know it. I didn't know of him, but he remembered seeing me go to the store with my father. My father was in a wheelchair, and he used to remember seeing me going around the grocery store with my father. Little did I know that 3 years later, I would be married to him. And I got married very young. I got married, we were together at 16. I got married the following year at 17.
Okay.
And so I always tell people that my marriage is ordained by God, because he had prepared this man for me as early as 11. My husband grew up in a household where he had this concept of what a husband and a father looks like. And that's why I said you have to understand the vision. You have to understand the vision that God has for your life, because my husband always tells me his mission is to be the best husband, to be the best man, and to be the best father that he can be, and to be that living example to not only his boys, but those who come around us. And so family is very important to me, making sure, not only my kids, I have two sons, that make sure they have the foundation of family, but, we are generational curse breakers. We break generational habits, and we break generational curses. And so our goal is to make sure that we lay a foundation that is so thick, rich, and full of God's love that generations that surpass us will be able to pick it up and go.
Wow. That's pretty deep. And in meeting him, you talking about being 17. Well, like when you say you got married, how did you know he was the one?
Um, God spoke to us at the same time.
Wow.
I never will forget. We had gone on a date, and a lot of people talk about love at first sight. Or love, you feel that moment of love. A lot of people really experience what they would like to call physical love or lust. Well, this was a different type of feeling for me. I had been in love as a teenager and had my heart broken, but this was different. This was almost like God was confirming, well, this is your husband. This is who you're going to be with. And so the feeling that he had was mutual. And so it's just, I don't know if it's him whispering to us, because God talks to me just like I'm talking to you.
Right.
And so when he said those words to me, that was confirmation enough for me. And my husband, he sees vision, just like like you're looking out of a window. And so he said he saw us being married and together. So we have different perspectives on how God communicates with us.
Yeah.
He sees, but I hear. And that's what makes us such a magical couple, because you've heard of people finishing each other's sentences or thinking about things at the same time, like twins would do. He and I are similar like that.
Wow. That's pretty deep, Tamika. Wait a minute. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah, he and I are like right now, he is at work, but I know a couple of things that he has planned to do that he's probably going to come back to me later today and say, hey, I thought about this, and this, and I'll come back and say, yeah, God spoke to me and told me that those things were going to happen today. It's almost like, and I've heard of twins being in different states or whatever, they can feel when the other twin is going through something.
Yeah.
He and I are just like that.
Wow. That's really cool. That's really cool. Well, what is some advice you would share to, just to single women who they desire to be married one day, and just some pearls of wisdom?
My pearls of wisdom is stop looking. We dress ourselves up, which we do that to feel good. I would say get out of your own way and stop looking. I thank God every day for the family that I didn't want.
Right. See,
I thank God because not only did he give me a husband after my own heart, but he gave me like the best kids. I ain't saying that they haven't had their challenges, their normal teenage challenges.
Mm-hmm.
But he gave me like the best kids
that
a mom could ever ask for. So as a single woman, I would say get out of your own way and stop looking, and be open to hearing God's voice, to who he is supposed to connect you with. A lot of people kind of brace their relationships off of physical attraction, and they brace their the connection in that way. But I say prepare yourself for the one that he is supposed to be preparing for you.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of people don't understand what evenly yoked really means. And so if a yoke is the contraption that you put around the oxen or the donkey to help plow the field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you visualize what evenly yoked really is, the farmer or whoever's controlling the oxen, I want you to picture that as being God. And then the Holy Spirit is the older oxen or donkey, and then you're on the other side. The Holy Spirit is training you.
Mm-hmm.
So you're evenly yoked first with the Holy Spirit. Your spouse also is across the way, being evenly yoked with the Holy Spirit. So he should be being prepared for you as you're being prepared for him. And so evenly yoked is you're being prepared at the same time for the same mission and the same lifestyle that God is preparing for you. So get out of your own way and stop looking.
Okay. And on the flip side of that, I wanted you to share with even other women who are married, because just in conversations that I've had, they're having challenges in their marriage, and if you would speak to them, Tamika.
Yes. I always attribute my marriage being successful, especially that first year, to my grandmother. I never will forget, I got married. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was all roses, hunky-dory within the first 5 or so years. We had financial challenges.
Yeah.
We had communication issues. I had my son. I was dealing with postpartum depression, and then I was a kid and he was growing up and he was a kid. And we were both children growing up together. And so I tell this short story real quick. My first thought for marriage was fight or flight, and I wasn't finna fight nobody. So I had this Rubbermaid tote waiting by the front door, because if I didn't like how this thing was going, I was leaving. I was gonna pack my little clothes up and I was gone. And so by the third or fourth time, I had done that. We would have our disagreements or whatever. And so I remember speaking to my grandmother, Lord bless her soul, Miss Mabel D. Williamson, told me this. She said, "You're a wimp." Girl, that cut me to my heart.
Okay, wait.
Now, my grandmother, who married my grandfather at age 14,
Oh,
and that was the only husband that she had.
Right.
And so when she called me on, she said, "You haven't been married 5 minutes, and you already leaving the man." Well, in my mind, I had counted a whole year.
Right. What you think? That's 365 days.
She said, in her mind, she said that wasn't for 5 minutes.
Right.
And so the best advice she gave me, I'm going to give to married women. She said, every time you have a disagreement with your husband, you do 3 things. Number 1, you think before you speak. Take 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Don't react to negativity. Number 2, you grab your Bible and you read something. Notice, I ain't telling you what to read. She said, read something. Something.
Right. Pick a chapter. Pick a verse.
And number 3, you say 2 prayers. Pray over your attitude and how you feel, and you pray over your husband. And that was the best advice that she could have given me, because I started not only praying for my husband and my attitude, God started dropping little nuggets in my spirit, like how to communicate.
All right.
How to receive correction. We are independent women, but I'm here to tell you, independence is isolation.
Wow.
And it is a trick of the enemy. God did not create us to be one, just a standalone entity. God created us for a relationship.
Yeah, He did.
And so with that, there are some things that you learn how to do to live and survive. But if you are a married person, you need to learn how to engage in relationship and communication. Number one reason why couples get divorced is because of communication. The number 2 reason is because of finances.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Because even with the I've done the exercise, and I know you've heard of it, the love languages.
Yes.
With that, I did exercises in a few different arenas, but it really is about how that person communicates, because you may look at it one way and the other person looks at it differently. And it's not bad either way. It's just that's how you interpret it, or that's how you learned it, or that's how you receive love or give love.
Right.
It really is about connectedness and learning how to see how that person is viewing it, and not just from your isolated view.
Yes, and a key to that is, because my husband and I both did the love line, and I had my boys do it too. We did it as a family.
Yeah.
And so the key to it is the way that I like to receive love is not the same way that everybody else wants to receive love.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but that's real.
That's real.
And it sounds so simple, Tamika. And I guess like you could view it as so when we say it, it's like, oh, this is how it is. But I can understand how it can be complicated if you were raised a certain way, or, just like you said, even with being an independent woman, if you are so used to that and and say you've been independent a long time, and then you're inviting someone into your space, the way you see it is not necessarily the way that they do. But how would they know what you like if you don't say it? If you just think, well, you're supposed to know. That sounds silly.
well, we would be a bunch of mind readers around here if we could read each other's minds. I tell people I've been married to my husband well over 20 years. It's an art to that.
Come on. All right now. Look, just say that. This does not come automatically. You got to learn. That's something you have to learn. And I'm sure he would say the same thing for you. Like, this was not overnight. Like, I'm still learning every day. I mean, really? And that's but that's the beauty of it. So thank you so much for sharing those nuggets, because for both single and married women, and that was the thing. I in having guests in the past, it would definitely be if you were married, you would talk to the single women. But then I've come to understand through conversation that even in speaking to other married women who are married, and say, like you said, you definitely believe your marriage is successful. And part of it, like you said, you work at it. You actually, you all do communicate. You've learned how to, to deal with each other, and just how to relate to one another. And so being able to share that, sometimes it's not just, the married woman talk to the single woman. It really is married women, or even single women, to speak to other women who may be newly single, because of through divorce or whatever happened with the situation. And then talking to married women too, because sometimes when you get married, it's like you lose the pizzazz. And even wanting to relate to your husband, you kind of like, oh, well, we here. But like keep yourself good now. Like make sure you cute it up.
Yes, with my husband, he has it doubly challenged because he's got a wife that's a business owner. So me being on the go all the time, at first I wasn't as and I own my stuff when I make mistakes. I wasn't as considerate with my time because I was on the go, trying to make things happen, trying to travel all over the place. And so God started to speak to me in my heart. He's like, look, you can't leave them behind, because you're working. You got to have balance in this thing.
Okay,
and so I started to have, people talk about work-life balance, and they talk about how cliche it is. No, it is real.
That's what's up.
I tell people, it is a real thing. And so, I look at my family and I cherish my family, because in my mind I had convinced myself that the reason why I was doing all this hustling and bustling and moving and shaking was because I was doing this for them, No, I had begun to get in competition with myself, trying to outdo the last thing that I had done. And so I had to check myself. And that's one of those maturity steps that I was telling you about. Because not only was I making myself miserable, I was making my household miserable. And so for my entrepreneurs who, feel like, my female entrepreneurs that feel like they bosses and they doing this and they doing that, I encourage you to go back and self-reflect and check yourself to see where you dropped the ball. Because I had to go back and pick up some pieces and start to really engage as, mom, as wife. You have to have date night. That's important. We have to have family day, because before I knew it, I was looking up and I have a 21-year-old and a 17-year-old, and I'm like, whoa,
wow. And just all of a sudden, and I mean, time, it definitely doesn't stop, and you'll look up, and just like you said, you've missed those moments that you could have really captured and embraced if you recognized that they were
Absolutely.
there, So I love it. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes, ma'am.
And I wanted to segue into our topic as relates to mother-daughter bonds. We have a segment talking about that, and so I am a published author. So I'm very glad and very grateful, and um, thank
Congrats.
you
Whoop, whoop.
so much for that. It definitely is a long time coming, but I praise God. I'm grateful for the opportunity. Because the book, it's near and dear to my heart. It's entitled "This Relationship Matters," and it's 7 keys to building healthy mother-daughter bonds, and it's coming from a mother's perspective. And I did want to read one of the kind of what others are saying as it relates to a review. And a person said, "This relationship matters is a powerful tool to reconnect mothers and daughters. Author Latasha Humphrey does an excellent job of organizing and explaining common mother-daughter issues and offering wise solutions. Read this book to strengthen one of the most important relationships you have in your life." And so I did want to dive into that first chapter, kind of that first key, is what I call it, and it's entitled "It All Starts with You, Self-Love." And so Tamika, I just wanted to read a little bit and see, just kind of your take on the excerpt, and
Okay.
then we'll dive into a few questions as it relates to it.
Okay.
But part of it, it will start to saying, this journey of loving me is evolving every day. Within recent years, I decided to intentionally take the time to love myself again unapologetically. Prior to making that decision, I felt like I forgot the natural instinct of loving me because I was so consumed with pretending like everything was okay to uphold a strong image, people pleasing because I did not want to disappoint, and serving others in several ways before I served myself. I was simply existing for a long time. Then one day, my truth disrupted my journey, and I was forced to look at what I allowed to manifest in my life. Certain things were exposed that I had to confront and deal with face to face. And so I just, even with that one excerpt, I wanted to kind of see your take on that.
I think that is the number one thing all women struggle with on a daily basis. And the reason why is because we're wearing so many hats.
Mm-hmm.
We're mothers, we're wives, we're women, we got to go to work and be employee. We wear so many hats that we lose our identity and our purpose to the world pretty much.
Yeah.
And so I think that excerpt just clearly defines the struggle of females and what we endure on a day-to-day basis, whether you're a single mom, whether you're a married woman, those are things that we struggle with. And so that really is so amazing because it takes me back to my relationship with my mom. My mom wasn't in my life between age 11 and probably 21. And I know a lot of people say she wasn't in your life. Well, where was she? She was there in the house,
Mm-hmm.
but there was no bond during that time. And so for me, I began to feel a sense of abandonment. And so I had to take a step back, and I always tell people I was the angriest little woman on earth because of that abandonment issue that I felt that I had at such a young age. And so I had to, just what you read, take a look at that from my mother's perspective. And that allowed me to start healing. And so as I started to take a look at that from my mother's perspective, I started to trace history a little bit that helped me understand my mother from a different light. And so as I walked through that journey, I saw that she was just existing. She had so much pressure on her. The lifestyle we grew up in was not a good one,
Yeah.
And so she was trying to survive. And then, she had gotten, into alcoholism, and that had taken a hold of her life at one point. And so I had to take a look not only at my mom's life, but I had to go a generation back and look at my grandmother and my grandfather's life. And so that helped me to understand and put things in perspective and began not only for me to heal, but I had to do two things. I had to forgive my mother,
Yeah.
And I had to forgive myself because I
Yes.
stayed angry a long time. And so through that, I always tell people God is a redeemer, God
Mm.
is a healer, God is a restorer. And so God turned that thing around where, I had not had her in my life during that time period, but my mom wound up moving in with my husband and I back in 2007. And so it's amazing to see how God had taken a once broken relationship and now has turned it into one of the most loving and endearing relationships between mother and daughter that I've ever seen before in my life. Like my mom is like this amazing woman that I feel like I'm just now getting to know. You get to know your parents from birth.
Right.
Well, I feel like I'm at that birth age again, getting to know who my mom is. And so I'm grateful for this opportunity, and I'm grateful I have this brain that I have today,
Right.
and not the 11-year-old brain.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, just like you're saying too, with kind of that redemption, because it's almost as though you all have it's been redeemed the years or that time, because that what was that about 10 years,
Oh yeah,
a
oh
10
yeah,
year time frame, and so there is redemption. And I wanted to ask you, as it relates to even loving yourself, what has your mother taught you about that, about loving you?
My mom has always had a huge heart, and so about loving me is being accepting of who I am in spite of what the world's system labels you as. I grew up in the projects, and girls from the projects had a label of hood rat.
Yeah.
I was a high school dropout, so that created another label for me. And I grew up in a rough household, and that created another label for me. And so, those labels that the world puts on you, if you're not careful, will become your identity. And so with me learning about my mom's heart, and she's deep into her word now, and so we have these little conversations now, not only between mother and daughter, but as women. And so she'll bring something to me and she'll say, look at what the word of God says you are. The word of God says that you're cherished. The word of God says that you're his handiwork. So she puts those little seeds of hope in me to remind me that, I'm not a hood rat. I'm not just a dropout. I don't have to be in competition with other people. And so that relationship that God has mended gives me not only my mom back, but it gives me my champion. It gives me an encourager when times are challenging. And so it's good to have her to lean on and to have that conversation with whenever I've had a tough day. Some days she don't say anything to me. She'll go fix me a cup of tea and I'll sit it on the table. Like, here, you need this today.
Okay, I love
Yeah.
it. It's like, hey, this is what you need.
Yeah, I knew what you need. I don't need to say nothing. Just here you go.
Wow. And how has she taught you how to love her?
Um, by again, the love languages. I even had her do it.
Okay.
And so what I had to learn is that, because of course, I'm college educated now, with my master's degrees and all that stuff. But book smart does not mean God smart. I always tell
See,
people that.
wait a minute.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Book smart don't always mean. Yeah, you can have all the degrees you want to on the wall, doctor, PhD, so and so. But book smart does not make you God smart. And it wasn't until I started reading my scriptures on love that I had to learn not only how to love, but how to love her. And so my mom is very low maintenance. She doesn't require a lot, you know.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, she stays to herself most of the time, but there's a couple of things that we do that I've learned about her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she has her doctor's appointments, and I take her to her doctor's appointments. And so one of the little things that she loves to do is she loves to go to breakfast after her doctor's appointment. So I carve that time out. And we go sit down and have what I like to call mama sister time. You know, she my mama, but we have that honey child, how you doing time,
Right, right. I love it.
and so, and then, on days that I am a little bit more homebound, we'll have our little conversations. She doesn't require much time. She just wants to A, check on me and see how I'm doing, and B, share something that she has learned through her time with God as well.
I love it. Perfect. Perfect. All right. Well, we're going to move into a series of questions that I would like for you to answer. And
Okay.
what it is it may encourage even more conversations like this among mothers and daughters. And so, and I also believe that it's a good way for our audience to get to know our guests. So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Perfect. What keeps you grounded?
Um, my family, you know, we have challenges and tough times like anyone else, but I think how we go through those times helps, makes us even stronger. In fact, my son had a car accident a week ago, and he totaled his car, and so, we were kind of worried about that. He wasn't hurt, nobody else was hurt, thank God for that. But, a lot of people take things like that for granted, So my biggest concern with my HR, I'm like, okay, this might affect his job because, this, that, and the other. But, you know, God shows us grace. And so seeing how my son interacted during that time, that showed me a different light. God told me in my ear, not only can you trust me, but trust the parenting that I've shown you how to do with that baby. And so my family is what keeps me grounded.
Okay. Perfect. What book most influenced you?
Oh, it's so many. It is so many. Recently, I read the book by Joyce Meyer called Overloaded. And so that's one that has influenced me within the last year because it made me take a mirror image look at how much I was running myself and how much, my health had started to take a toll. And so some things this year that I'm doing differently is going to help balance out what I'm doing. Another person I read upon and I love their life is Jackie Onassis.
Okay.
Um, just her grace and her poise and how she handled challenges in her life was amazing. So those are two books that I've read recently.
Okay. What question do you wish more people would ask you?
I get so many of them. Um, the question that I wish people would ask me the most is how to develop faith. We say we have faith. We read, we write the little sayings. We pump our fist in the air and say, I got faith. But faith is not you saying it. Faith is you walking through the test. And so understanding the trials of life. It's easy for me to tell you, girl, have faith. What does that mean to you if you don't know what it means? So I think, and I don't have the magic formula, so to speak, to having faith, but God has shown me some things in life, and He ain't done showing me yet.
Okay. What is something that every woman should try once in her lifetime?
I'm not a thrill seeker, so it's some things that I have to develop on my bucket list that I have not developed yet. Um, I think every woman should take a trip abroad somewhere. The place that I want to visit, in my lifetime. I have two places. One is Africa, and the other one is Italy. I think visiting different countries gives you a different perspective on how to live life. I've read upon different cultures and the things that we take for granted here in the United States. You should see different cultures cherish the things that we take for granted. So I think travel is very important to education.
Okay. What advice would you give to a woman with a broken heart?
Oh, forgiveness. And forgiveness is not going to be automatic. Forgiveness is going to take time, but you have to make an intentional effort to forgive. I suffered a broken heart for 10 years, not having my mom in my life. And so when God started to heal my heart and start to work on me, he showed me how to actively forgive. And actively forgiving is taking those moments to do the things that you don't want to do because you hurt. Like he would tell me, go do something nice for my mom, and I wasn't feeling nice that day.
Right. No, that's
Or
real.
or things that I had to do when you know when I felt like emotionally she's just gotten on my last nerve because I'm still hurt from years beyond. What I had to do, and I had to actively do this exercise, I had to actively look at a picture of her in my mind and look at her and say, I love you and I forgive you. I
Mm.
had to I had to actively do that. And it took a little while, it took about 3 to 6 months for me not to feel that moment of aggravation with my mom or irritation with my mom. It was for a while, it was like nails on a chalkboard to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how irritated I would get. But I had to actively forgive. I had to like visualize her face and say, I love you and I forgive you. And so I think if we learn how to actively forgive, broken hearts will be few and far in between.
Okay. What superpower would you like to have?
Oh,
Just say, oh.
ooh, duplication. I would love to duplicate myself.
Okay.
Like I would love to be at the house, up under my warm little blanket, drinking some tea while I send one Tamika out to work, one Tamika out to go do errands. Would love to do that if I could.
Okay. Well, what what is your favorite kind of food?
Oh, my favorite kind of food. Well, I have a lot of allergies, and I recently found out that I had a gluten allergy. So there are a lot of foods that, food is my one thing that I cherish to my heart because there are only very few that I can have. So my favorite food is a cheeseburger on a gluten-free bun, bacon cheeseburger on a gluten-free bun. Now I can't indulge in them too often, but when I have a taste for them, I gotta have one.
All right. What's the most important lesson that you've learned last year?
Oh, the most important lesson is balance. That's the most important thing that I've learned in 2017. And for 2018, God has me on this journey to practice consistent balance. It's one thing to be balanced for a day, but it's more important to practice balance on a consistent level.
Okay. And if you could talk to one person from history, who would it be and why?
Who would it be and why? History. Um, my person that I would talk to would be. Can I have two? It would be two
Sure,
people.
sure.
Of
Go
course,
ahead. Look.
of course, Jack. I know I gotta be special,
I
right?
know, right?
Jack,
Can I have two?
Jackie Onassis would be my first person that I would talk to from history.
Okay. Now, why? Why would you want
And
to talk? Who?
my
Why would you want to speak with her?
because I would like to just be in the presence of her strength to see, behind the veil a little bit of the woman that she is. She's just a woman of grace, a woman of poise, and just to learn a little bit more about her. I don't think that the books and the movies do her justice enough. Um, my second person that I would talk to is Della Reese.
Ah.
She is an amazing woman. I read a little bit about her story, and I'm planning on reading a little bit more. But um, she endured quite a few hardships as an African American woman, and I would like to see how she overcame a lot of her adversities as well, and what wisdom would she give, a woman like me going forward.
Okay. And I do want to ask, recently, I had the opportunity, actually, the last podcast for 2017, I was able to interview about 5 women in my
Mm-hmm.
family on my paternal side of the family. And when they talked about one of my aunts who my grandmother stayed with, who, Flora Pearl, actually, the foundation is named after my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
But she talked about how she knew her mom was a good person. So this is one of my aunts. Her name's Pat. She knew that her mom was a good person, but she said she didn't know how great she was until after she passed.
Mm-hmm.
And so, kind of the legacy, I remember hearing Dr. Maya Angelou talk about, and she said to Oprah one time that your legacy is the lives that you touch. You know, that's what your legacy is. Because Oprah was saying, well, trying to build my legacy. Like, it was some years back when they had this conversation. But I
Mm-hmm.
just think about that, like, even with, legacy, and you think about just how great people are. Do you feel like you really get to see that when they pass more so than when they're alive?
I always tell even the parents that we work with, there's no statute of limitations on parenting, on on the lessons that we teach our children. I mean, I still hear my grandmother's voice well beyond her grave when
Mm-hmm.
I'm challenged, and so there's no statute of limitations. So I agree. I think legacy can also happen right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there are so many. I do classes out of the Love Lady Center, and you would be surprised how many women in the center have, haven't heard the words "I love you,"
Mm.
or haven't heard the words that, don't have didn't or did not have a realization before being there, because the Love Lady Center's program is a phenomenal program. Did not understand their worth. And so I think that legacy does come by way of the lives that you touch, but not only when that person is gone. I think it happens in the moments that you experience right now as well. Because as I teach the classes there, a lot of the women always tell me thank you, and thank you for all you do and this and that, but they don't know that they do just as much for me, you know,
Yeah.
as they feel that I do for them. Some women, I can see the strength that that they haven't tapped into quite yet. And it's some that God tells me, that one there is going to be a strong soldier. This one here, it's just amazing being amongst so many different people. And I get touched, by so many different lives, that I get the the privilege of encountering, or the privilege of teaching. I still hear my grandmother's voice, my mom dropping those little nuggets of wisdom into my life. My boys teach me lessons. So it's not only after the person passes away, but it's in the right now moments as well.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay. Well, I wanted to move into our faith segment, and I know you talked earlier about that question that you wish more people would ask, and so this is a segment where you're able to share how important your faith is, and in making different decisions, and just period. Just I wanted to know if you would share a time in your life when your faith has been tested and how you came through it to encourage someone else.
Oh, a lot of people don't know this. I don't share a lot. But in 2002, I actually coded. I died. It was April 8th, 2002. I actually stopped breathing. I had an asthma attack that was so severe that by the time my husband had gotten me to the emergency room and I got into the back, I was out. And so faith is believing that you're going to come out on top. And I remember, a lot of people say, well, if you just have the faith of a mustard seed. Now, before I left, before I died, I tell people I died and I came back. And so I remember I couldn't even speak because I was struggling to breathe so hard. But I remember thinking the word, Lord, I'm not ready to go yet. If you save me, I just remember saying, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And so he saved me, they got me back. And so I was without oxygen. It's recorded. I was without oxygen for 5.5 minutes. And so I was in the ICU unit for a few days, and I was actually in a medically induced coma because they had to let my respiratory system heal from struggling to breathe so hard. And so they had me intubated, and I was kind of in and out of consciousness, but they kept me, I could hear when people would come visit me, and my husband, he delivered pizza for a living, and so every delivery that came to the hospital, I was at Cooper Green Hospital, he would take every delivery that came to that hospital, and he would take extra time to sit with me. He would come to the hospital on extra, in between his shifts and sit with me, And so when I finally came to, and they pulled that tube out of me and they moved me to a hospital room, I remember when I stood up for the first time and I looked in the mirror and I frightened myself because the blood vessels in the whites of my eyes, I was struggling to breathe so hard, I popped the blood vessels, and so they were red. And so I looked to me, hideous.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is what faith is. I coded in the emergency room. My husband could not come back to see me. He said God whispered in his ear and told him to, after he saw me, to go home and prepare my bag to come home.
Wow.
And there was a lady in the emergency room. He said he'd seen this lady twice. I had 2 sons at the time. I had gone to the hospital a week earlier because I was having issues with my asthma. And at the time, you couldn't take children to the back that were under the age of 12. So this lady was sitting in the lobby. He wanted to come back and check on me. This was a week prior. She looked at him and she said, I'll watch your babies for you so you can go be with your wife. The next week I coded that same lady. He said, I swear. He said, baby, it was the same lady. She was there to watch the boys for me while I came to the back with you.
Wow.
That's faith. Faith is trusting God when you ain't got no other choice. When you feel like you in control, because ultimately, you up breathing and walking around, you think you in control. You not. And that's the reality of it. I don't take life for granted anymore.
Okay.
You know, I don't stress myself to the point where I can't breathe. You know, in the Bible, I forget it's the Serenity Prayer. You know, I look at that prayer often because the things I can't control, I can't. There's nothing I can do about it. Nothing at all.
Wow. Oh, that's good. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that and being open about that. I know that it would encourage someone, so thank you. And we're going to move into our closing segment. It's called Matters of the Heart Moment. And Tamika, if you had the opportunity to speak to your 4-year-old self, what would you say to her?
Ooh, 4-year-old Mika. Um, get ready. I would tell myself, life is not as bad as it may seem. Because 4 years old, you know, you're innocent. You're still kind of figuring out who you are. You're growing. So I would try to prepare myself as much as possible for what's to come, um, and just tell myself to get ready. You know, at 4 years old, you know, we didn't go to church a whole lot, you know, or engage in spiritual practice, and so I would probably tell my little 4-year-old self, look, start praying now.
Okay.
Start praying now. Get to know God more now at this young age.
Yeah. And I want to kind of I guess interject right there. That 11-year-old Tamika, before
Mm-hmm.
you even before you made the statement to your father, and before just really even knowing kind of the situation with your mom, what would you say? And I know it's not about changing or regretting or anything like that, but what could you
Mm-hmm.
speak to her as a mentor to her to really tell her to kind of help her deal with what possibly was to come?
I would tell her it's not your fault. Yeah, I held on to a lot. You know, you heard me talk a lot about my mom, but my dad, you know, he wasn't all roses either. And so, but at the time, you know, I kind of idolized him because he was the primary parent in my life, you know. But a lot of people don't know my father was the dope man. He was the neighborhood dope man. He sold drugs, and so the environment that you hear me talk about was that environment. And so um, the things that I grew up seeing and being a part of, um, you know, I took to heart, you know, a lot of things that happened, you know. And I remember at 13 asking my mom, I said, do you love daddy? You know, because, you know, I always ask the weird questions, you know,
Mm-hmm.
kind of help me settle in my spirit. And I remember my mom's answer. She said, I respect your dad. And I was like, whoa, you know, that was big to me because you don't love him, but you respect him. So I always wondered where the disconnect was between love and respect. And so, for as me being 11 years old, you know, I would go back and I would tell 11-year-old Tamika, look, none of this is your fault, and it's okay.
Okay, that's good. Who motivates you?
Um, so many people. Um, I could say you're one of my motivations because you doing that book has really lit a fire up under my butt because and just talking through this process, you know, has encouraged me even more because a lot of people have asked me, well, when's the book coming out? And so I was a little reluctant to write my story because I did not want to villainize my mom or villainize my dad. And so, you know, just thinking through the process, you know, even in 2017, you know, God intervened and gave me a way to tell the story. So you're one of my inspirations on being bold and stepping out there and doing that.
Thank you.
My husband and my kids, they motivate me. You know, they push me in ways that they probably don't even think that they do. My youngest son, who's a mini me, you know, people always say, you always have one kid that's going to be just like you. And he's the one that's just like me. Sometimes we argue, we bump heads, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I see where he gets it from. You know, I've never said, well, I don't know who child you are. I'm like, yeah, I know who kid you are. Already, like, thanks, God.
That's mine.
That's mine. And there are just so many. My community also motivates me. I just love community. I love people. I love family. My community and my city motivates me because there's so many great things that are happening in the community. A lot of people are looking at the crime levels and the things that are going on. I said, well, for just as much bad as the news shows, there's probably 4 times the good that's going on in our community. And so just watching the good that comes out of the community, or watching children have that aha moment where they're kind of coming into their own, or a parent, you know, I love to see people win. And so that's a motivation for me.
Yeah, that's good. Awesome. Was there any last minute piece of advice or comments that you want to share?
Last piece of advice and comments. For my business owners, just make sure that you take the opportunity to balance your life. For families, I would say to build a foundation and to ask God what your family's mission and vision are. You know, we kind of coin mission and vision for businesses, but no, every family unit has a mission and vision that God has downloaded into them. So my family's mission and vision is Genesis 1:26 through 28, as well as Romans 10:9 through 10. And we live that every day. We teach that every day, and we encourage that every day. For women, you know, learn how to love who you are, the way God designed you, and learn how to forgive. I think women hold on to a lot more, way more than men do. And we actually have, a lot of women don't know this, we have a lot bigger egos than men do. A lot of people say men are men. No, I can see men that don't like each other, high five each other, work together. But when it comes to women, we hold on to so much and we lose so much into that. So I would encourage women to learn how to love you the way that God made you and tap into your superpower, you know, because your superpower is super for you and it's still needed in the world.
Thank you. Well, Tamika, thank you so much. We definitely appreciate you for being with us today and for sharing and just being open and transparent. It's been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And our goal at the Flora Pearl Foundation is to always be a blessing to all of those that we come in contact with by operating with the spirit of excellence. We want to thank you all so much for listening today. And you can visit our website at www.florapearlfoundation.org. We look forward to spending time with you all each week, and we will talk to you soon.